What's the most extreme thing you've done for revenge? My wife and I had been married for 15 years, with two wonderful daughters, 13 and 10. For the most part, our relationship was healthy, or so I thought. But then, things started to feel off. She became overly protective of her phone, deleted saved passwords on our shared computer, and would abruptly end calls when I walked into the room. You can probably guess where this is going. Hoping it wasn't what it seemed, I decided to follow her one day, when she claimed she was spending time with the girls. Instead, she drove to a hotel to meet a man I'll call Steve. It was a gut punch. I cried for an hour straight, but then I decided I wasn't going to just sit back and take it. I wanted to get even, legally, but decisively. The first step was gathering evidence. I installed discrete cameras and microphones in our bedroom, positioning one perfectly to capture the bed. I didn't use them while I was home, but I set the stage for what came next. A few days later, I suggested taking the girls on a weekend trip, something I often did since I was the more involved parent. My wife agreed, and I knew this was my chance. While I was away, I checked the recordings. Sure enough, it was a 36-hour marathon of betrayal. Not only did I catch them in the act, but I also overheard their conversations. They laughed about my insecurities, shared my deepest secrets, and even mocked a painful story from my past. It was devastating, but it gave me the ammunition I needed. When I returned, I confronted her with the evidence. I presented her with a separation agreement that granted me custody of the girls and told her she had to leave. I threatened to explain everything to our daughters if she didn't comply. It was a bluff. I'd never hurt them like that, but she was too emotional to see through it. After some denial, bargaining, and anger, she signed the papers and left that evening. I was honest with the girls, explaining that their mom had been unfaithful. My older daughter was furious, while the younger one took time to process it. This became important later when my wife tried to fight for custody during visitation, bad-mouthing me to the kids. That's when I activated the final phase of my plan. I took the girls on a trip to South Carolina, ostensibly to visit Fort Sumter, but really because it's one of the few places where revenge porn isn't illegal. I uploaded the recordings of my wife and Steve to various sites, making sure to include the clip where Steve couldn't perform. I sent the links to her employer, her clients, and Steve's wife and workplace. The fallout was swift. Steve got divorced, and my wife lost her job of 8 years. She also lost any chance of gaining custody. I kept the girls, and while I didn't receive alimony, I didn't need it. I make enough to support us, and the girls are old enough to manage while I work full-time. Months later, my wife is still unemployed. The last time we spoke, she threatened me saying she'd get revenge for ruining her life. But for now, I'm focused on raising my daughters and moving forward.